Hi, everyone that's joining us. Welcome in. I'm just going to give folks a minute or two here to join us, and then we'll get started. Thanks, everybody who's joining us this afternoon. We're just going to give everyone about a minute more, and we'll jump into our introduction as the attendees waiting room slows down. All right, looks like most of the folks have joined us. So thanks everyone for joining our webinar. This is another webinar in the Electrifying Buildings in the Truckee Tahoe Region series. My name is Kaylee Reynolds, and I facilitate the Climate Transformation Alliance, or CTA. This webinar series is supported by CTA, our local chapter of Citizens Climate Lobby, which is led by Deirdre Henderson, and 100% Renewable Truckee Tahoe, which is co-founded by Matt Tucker and Deirdre. So thank you guys for being here today and supporting this webinar. Today's webinar is highlighting a local program that is run by Sierra Business Council called Go Electric Truckee Tahoe. Go Electric Truckee Tahoe emerged from CTA and Sierra Business Council's shared goal of achieving carbon neutrality in the Truckee and Lake Tahoe region, and it includes several components that will help advance the region's decarbonization goals. So two of my SBC colleagues are here to present for the Go Electric Truckee Tahoe program. David Yeager will be presenting on the workforce education and training side, which upskills local contractors to install electrification equipment in our area. And Brittany Gutierrez will present on the electrification coaching program. This offers free technical assistance to home and building owners navigating the switch from fossil fuels to electric heat pump systems. So thank you both for being here today to present for us. So today we're first going to hear the program introduced by Brittany, and then David will present. We'll do a quick pause for questions after David's presentation on the contractor training, and then we'll pass the mic back to Brittany. And we will also have open Q&A at the end where you would be able to unmute yourself and ask your question. Throughout the presentation, feel free to use the Q&A box, and we'll make sure your questions are answered. Deirdre will be monitoring that Q&A box. So without further ado, I will pass it over to you, Brittany.
Awesome. Thanks, Kaylee. And thanks to Deirdre and Matt for having us along. We're really excited to discuss the Go Electric Truckee Tahoe program and talk about a little bit of our goals and what we've been able to accomplish over the past year, as well as our future upcoming events. So we're really excited to get into it. If you want to move on to the next slide. Thank you. So this is our Go Electric Truckee Tahoe team. I'm really excited to, we feel really lucky to work with a great group of people that have so much passion about this. So as mentioned, I'm Brittany Gutierrez. I'm a project manager at Sierra Business Council. I've been here for 2.5 years or so now, and I work primarily on the electrification coaching service side of it. We have David Yeager, who will also be presenting. He's a project manager working on the workforce education and training. We also have Sherry Howe, who's our director. She's been really pivotal in guiding a lot of this programming. And part of our team is also Dan Perunco. So Dan, he's with Balance Point Home Performance. Dan currently works as an instructor, course instructor for our workforce education and training component, and has had many, many years of experience installing heat pumps. So he provides a lot of that technical expertise. So he's based out of Grass Valley, but he's done a lot of installs of heat pumps in the Truckee Tahoe region. And also been heavily involved in hosting many different utility trainings around building electrification. So we're lucky that we got to snag him up for that contractor training portion. You want to move on to the next slide. Thanks, Kaylee. So a little bit about the background about the program itself. We were formerly called the Truckee Tahoe Building Decarbonization Pilot Program, which was too much of a mouthful. So we definitely decided to reduce it down to the Go Electric Truckee Tahoe. We also felt that it was much easier to understand. I think sometimes the words electrification and decarbonization can be hard for the general public to have, a good understanding of what that means. So we stuck with Go Electric Truckee Tahoe, and it's been pretty, we're happy with it. But the program itself is focused on providing resources and training to advance regional building decarbonization efforts. The program is primarily focused on heat pump installations, but there are some aspects of other electrification measures. So there, as Kaylee mentioned, there's two main components to the program, which include the free workforce education and training to upskill local contractors. And we also provide an electrification coaching service that is available to homeowners and business owners. The program itself started because there was a recognized issue of a lack of contractors in the area who work on heat pump measures. One, there's a recognized issue of contractors in general in the area, but especially those that have experience working on heat pumps. And a big part of this is due to a lot of misconceptions that heat pumps don't work in cold climates. We've heard that a lot through homeowners and contractors themselves, but we've seen a lot of great webinars and hosts in the past letting us know that that's definitely not true. Cold climate heat pumps are able to work in -15 to -20 degree weather, which we typically definitely don't see in the region. And to further prove this point, about 2/3 of households in Norway, which is a much colder country and region, utilize heat pumps for space heating. So the big, I guess, issue that we see with heat pumps in our area is where do you protect that outdoor unit from snow and cold, so and ice freezing over it. So that's kind of mainly the big issue that we have. And when we started this program, we did some research and we basically knew of only a couple or a handful of contractors who work on heat pump projects. So we really wanted to upskill those local workforce in our area. So the program was developed when someone in the region tried to electrify their home and was met with many barriers and found it really difficult to even find resources. So this angel funder then came to CTA and Sierra Business Council to begin developing and implementing the electrification programming. And we also recognize that in order to continue the work that we're doing and have the impact on the region that we would like to, we had to diversify our funding. So after doing a couple of different grant funding searches and putting in a couple of proposals, we're excited to announce that we've secured funding from the California Energy Commission in partnership with the town of Truckee to extend this program into 2027. So we're really lucky that, we were awarded that. If you want to move on to the next page, please. Thanks. So listed here are our program goals. The first being related to our workforce education and training component, which involves upskilling 30 local contractors on how to install heat pumps in cold climates. And then our second goal is really focused on supporting approximately 20 home and building owners by providing them with assistance and resources as they begin their electrification journey. And then eventually, hopefully, turning those into actual hands-on projects that we can connect them to the contractors that are involved in our training once they feel comfortable. But I'll pass it on to David as he'll talk a little bit more about that contractor training portion and why we decided to really heavily focus it on heat pumps.
Great, thanks, Brittany. So first, I just want to talk a little bit more about heat pumps and why we're interested in making heat pump adoption easier in the Truckee Tahoe region. So as you're likely aware, there are multiple initiatives in California to promote electrification, um, many of which are focused on expanding heat pump space conditioning and water heater adoption. So for instance, the newest California Energy Code, which is going to go into effect at the start of 2026, comes short of requiring heat pumps, in every new building, but it does encourage them in new buildings. And as you can see on the graphic there on the right, the California Energy Commission is expecting a pretty large energy savings impact as a result of this new code. And on top of that, in September 2022, the California Air Resources Board, or CARB, they voted to prohibit the sale of new natural gas-fired furnaces and water heaters starting in 2030. So that's a goal of CARB's. And as you may be aware, CARB staff is currently developing their standards and their regulations for this, and they're hosting listening sessions throughout the state, which some of you may have attended. So if this does in fact occur in 2030, we'll be expecting, a lot more demand, obviously, for electric heat pumps, for, space conditioning and water heating, and that's just 5 years away, so it's not really too far. Um, so as we've heard, we currently don't have the workforce that is able to serve this potential demand. So part of this program is to make that a bit easier so that we're prepared when it does come down the pipeline. The state of California is definitely pushing this path to electrify all of their buildings to fight their, greenhouse gas inventory or greenhouse gas emissions work. So we are expecting this to get more and more stringent as time goes on. Additionally, there's a lot of current rebates that are available. So we have federal tax credits, which are still available at the moment that people can take advantage of. There's Tech Clean California, which offers rebates for heat pump space conditioning and water heating. And there's also local utilities that provide rebates. And we want to make sure that folks in our region are able to take advantage of these while they're still available, since they may not be forever. Which of course requires both informed public about this as well as a larger pool of skilled contractors. Okay, next slide, please. So it's not just California where this is happening. So nationally, heat pumps have outsold gas furnaces for 3 years in a row, with the largest margin occurring last year. We expect this trend to continue as heat pump technology continues to get better and more accessible. So we're just trying to help provide those resources and support needed for our region to keep up with these national trends. Next slide, please. All right, so our workforce education and training wing has 4 components primarily. So first, the first thing we launched was our on-demand classes, which are online courses that were developed and presented by Dan Pronko of Balance Point Home Performance. These courses have been available on demand, and they cover a wide range of topics, both ducted and non-ducted heat pumps, heat pump water heaters, how to do building load calculations, and a lot more. Each video of the 10 is about 2 hours long, so there's about 20 hours of total content, which is a lot. And includes a lot of detail from Dan's own experiences as well as very technical information. So it's definitely geared towards a more professional contractor that has a little bit of background knowledge in this. I know our team has done a lot of work trying to understand everything that Dan is presenting on, and we're still learning a lot, but it is can be pretty complicated. So we initially hosted those classes on this program called Thinkific, which is an online education tool. However, we realized that the registration process for Thinkific requires some extra steps, and we found that not all of our participants that were registering for our program were also taking those steps to register to view those on-demand classes. Additionally, because our program doesn't necessarily need all of the features that Thinkific has, we've recently decided to move our videos over to YouTube on unlisted videos so we can send out the direct links to contractors, but they're not like searchable online. So we're still keeping it within the pool of registrants in our region, but we're hoping that it's going to be a lot more accessible and more people will use it. And we've received a lot of positive feedback so far, so looking forward to that. The classes are also region specific. So Dan specifically talks about all of the work he's done in the Truckee and Tahoe region. The first two classes are really just geared towards issues that are unique to this area, I guess, and other mountainous climates. So like Brittany was saying, with cold temperatures and higher snow loads, but also he dives into architecture types that we see in this area and different kind of nuances that you might run into as a contractor trying to install a heat pump in this specific region. The classes also focus heavily on building improvements that are necessary to optimize heat pump performance. So instead of just having a heat pump get installed in some drafty old house, which could end up really raising somebody's electricity bills and causing worse performance with the equipment, Dan really focuses on all of the things that need to be done, sort of house and building wide, that will cause a successful install. So the next part is our in-person trainings. So they offer a similar material to the online classes, but obviously allow attendees to talk to Dan, ask him questions, and he brings in some equipment for people to view in person and get some more hands-on experience. Our team works with Dan on the subjects and materials to be covered in those presentations, and we help him out with time spent on each subject. We've hosted two in-person trainings last year, one in July that was located at Liberty Utilities, their office in North Lake Tahoe, and the other was hosted at the Truckee Tahoe Airport in November. The second in-person class also included home tours at two homes in Truckee that had installed heat pumps. So that was a really great opportunity for the contractors that attended. It was really valuable for them to see how things were, how that was implemented, since one of them was actually implemented by Dan and Balance Point Home Performance. So that was really cool. And I'll get into that a little bit more later. We also offer one-on-one personalized mentoring where contractors can reach out to Dan with any general or project-specific questions that they have related to heat pumps. And the final part of this part of the program, we have filled our website with lots of great materials. That's climatetransformationalliance.org/buildingdecarb. So this has resources for contractors, which includes information on rebates. We have educational and marketing resources. So, marketing specific for heat pumps from the contractor perspective. And then we also have some guidance on local standards and codes required to install heat pumps in this region. Next slide, please. So some of the results since last May, when we first launched the online classes, we've had 16 contractors utilize the Thinkific program and take part in that part of the online format. On March 10th, we uploaded the online classes to YouTube. And we've had 10 unique viewers and 62 total views across our 10 videos. One of the positives about YouTube is that we're able to add in chapters into the videos, which if there's 20 hours of content, it makes it a lot easier to navigate to the specific portions that the contractor wants to find out about. The downside is that we do not know who is specifically viewing the videos, which was something that we had on Thinkific. So we're still kind of taking stock of the effectiveness of this move, but we're learning. Okay, next slide, please. For the in-person classes, we had 19 people attend the two in-person trainings, 9 of which also had taken the online classes. So the first class was one full day lecture, which occurred in July, as I mentioned. We were expecting the contractors to have taken some of the online classes beforehand and come in kind of prepared to ask questions to Dan, but this didn't end up really being the case. So we kind of had to pivot and have Dan kind of make it more of a lecture style than a Q&A style. So it ended up being kind of a long day of lectures, but it was really useful and we got through a lot of content and we still had a really positive response from attendees. But after getting feedback from those contractors in the first class, we changed things up a little bit in the second. And instead of having, one full day lecture, we had 2 half-day lectures. So it was in the mornings of a Monday and a Tuesday. And then in the afternoon of the first day, we did the home tours in Truckee. So one of the homes, like I said, was actually a project of Balance Point Home Performance. So Dan was able to explain his process in really great detail, which is really valuable. And the other home wasn't a project of Dan's, but he was able to make critiques about the things he was seeing and say, maybe he would have done things slightly differently if he had been doing the install. So that ended up being a really great educational tool as well. And both of the homeowners, they'd had heat pumps for a while and they're really happy with them so far. So it was good to see like a positive, it works in this area experience for those contractors. And then we also had all attendees say that they would recommend the course in our post-class survey, which was really great. We had a good range of participants as well. So we had licensed plumbers, HVAC contractors, and general contractors. And we had a couple, younger attendees that were training to get their licenses and interested in entering this field. We also had a couple of architects that actually took part that had been getting requests from some of their clients to incorporate heat pumps into the designs of their buildings. So they found value in coming to these classes to learn more about how to do that. Most of the attendees that took part in these classes didn't or hadn't had any experience yet installing heat pumps. We had a couple that have been in the region, so that was really great, but most folks were learning about it for the first time. So there was a pretty wide range of both knowledge and also background. Next slide, please. So for the home tours, here's a couple photos. On the left, this is the house that wasn't a project of Dan's, but yeah, the homeowner had their heat pump for a few years, super happy with it. They'd also done a lot of other electrification things like solar panels, heat pump water heater, battery, EVs. So they kind of are doing this whole electrification project on their home. So that was really great for everyone to see. They also had an ADU in the back that also had heat pumps and a heat pump water heater. And on the right there, this is the very large crawl space from the project that Dan had worked on. So here he is talking a little bit more about the ducting that's above them that he had worked on. Next slide, please. So for the mentoring part of the program, we only had 2 contractors utilize this service. We definitely were hoping that more would be, even though we tried to push it a bit, but I think because most of the folks that we're working with aren't currently doing the installs, that this is maybe something that will pick up steam a little bit as we continue to work with the contractors that we're working with. So we're definitely going to keep pushing it, and we're expecting a lot more interest in it. But unfortunately, it's only been a couple people so far. But for those projects, Dan helped them review plans, worked out options for heat pump installation and ducting, and then also enclosure improvements. Next slide. Cool. And here's a couple screenshots from our website for our contractor resources. So we have marketing resources, like I mentioned, that's specific for marketing heat pumps from the contractor perspective. There's a bunch of videos on YouTube. There's some websites. There's a lot of good stuff in there. We also have our incentives and other training resources, just generally from other, some of the partner programs that we're working with, like the Switches On. We also have our electrification funding opportunities. So those are our rebates that are currently available. So that's constantly being updated as new things come out or get put on pause, which unfortunately happens quite a bit. So that's always changing. And then also on the right, you can see our heat pump codes and standards page. So we broke it down through every jurisdiction in the Tahoe Chapter region and kind of broke down anything in their building code or zoning codes that was specific to heat pumps that would be worth considering before doing a project. Next slide, please. All right, so some of the challenges that we ran into. So first of all, heat pumps, especially HVAC heat pumps, can be very complex and depend highly on the needs of the individual home and the customer. Not only is every home slightly different, every person also has different levels of comfort that they're looking for that may require a different kind of heat pump or more power. So it could be a lot of different things. It's hard to have a simple how-to class and a couple of in-person trainings to provide for contractors and then have them go out and feel comfortable to install one of these machines. It can take a lot of time for someone to get to that point and also a lot of hours of hands-on training. We also found that we had contractors coming into the program with very different stages of expertise and backgrounds, which made tailoring the material to be useful to different levels of knowledge a bit trickier. Also, nearly all of our participants were self-trained or trained on the job, so each individual background, source of knowledge was different based on that individual's personal experiences. So as a result, it has been a challenge to get to that next step of getting some of our participants to start actually installing heat pumps in the field, which, like I said, requires a lot of hours and hands-on learning. We hoped that the mentoring program would kind of help out with this, but we haven't had as much participation in that as we'd like to. So that's definitely a big goal this year, is to get more participation in that part of the program to hopefully get some of those contractors over the hump to start actually doing that, the installs. Additionally, in our region, like Brittany mentioned, there's a lot of skepticism from contractors about heat pump technology. For those that have been installing gas furnaces or more traditional electric or gas water heaters, they don't necessarily see the value of installing or learning a new complex thing if they're already getting plenty of work doing what they know how to do really well already. So, of course, for a lot of those folks, they didn't take part in the training because they might not have seen the value in it at the time, but it made outreach about the subject more nuanced in how we communicate about heat pumps and the value of this program. Also, it's a lot of work in general to learn a new thing while still being busy with the day-to-day job of a contractor. So we found occasionally, even if someone was really interested in the program, they simply didn't have the time to commit to the program or weren't able to make some of the in-person classes. So we had a few people that signed up for the in-person class, and then, a day or two before, we'd get an email saying something came up, I can't make it. So, or someone could just come to part of the classes. So it's really hard to work around those really busy schedules with a program like this. And also just trying to maintain the interest of participating contractors when they are also really busy is a bit of a challenge. So we're always trying to think of new ways and new things to keep people involved and to provide different avenues of accessibility. Next slide, please. So a little more on that. So these are our takeaways from those challenges and how we've been trying to address them. First of all, outreach and how we go about doing our outreach is definitely really vital to our program. We used quite a few different avenues to spread the word about it, including, emails, mailing and dropping off flyers at hardware stores, distributors, coffee shops, anywhere people might see them. We did radio and online ads, and of course, phone calls. So tried to hit people wherever they might have eyes. We've also held a happy hour before the launch, kind of a social event that we hosted with the Contractors Association of Truckee Tahoe to try and talk about the program and get people interested before it started. So yeah, we tried to hit every avenue we could. Additionally, we knew we would have to understand that, not only the contractors come from different backgrounds and levels of expertise, they also have differing opinions about heat pump technology and its viability in our region. So we wanted the content of the resources to be useful to that wide range of individuals while still leaving room to hear folks out about maybe their concerns or some of their hesitancy about getting involved with the program. And from our point of view, dispelling myths about their viability. So because of that, we really just try and meet contractors where they're at and then talk about facts and what we know and get them involved with Dan to talk about his experiences. So because of all those different opinions and potentially outdated information we run into about heat pumps, we're just really focusing on building groundwork in our region, start spreading new and accurate information about heat pumps and their viability in cold and snowy climates. Our hope is that, by being a trusted source and resource for heat pump information, we can help contractors that are interested in expanding their services to include heat pump technology, to at least learn about how they can be successfully implemented in this area. To work around the scheduling issues I was talking about, another huge tenet of this program that I alluded to was accessibility. So making resources accessible as possible at any time. So this is what inspired having more of an a la carte on-demand class option as the primary format for this information. And the in-person classes were acting as more of a supplementary part of the training where it was more interactive, but covered a little bit of the same material. And then the mentoring is also totally on demand, just based on Dan's availability. And finally, we're hoping to make our program more comprehensive and hands-on to allow for more tangible skill building necessary for taking those next steps and to actually get a contractor who has never done a heat pump install to start doing them. And it's just really great that we got more funding for this program, so we're able to move forward with some of the plans that we had. Next slide, please. So some of our planned next steps to move things forward. So we will be providing more in-person trainings this year and next year, hopefully still including the home tours, since we've received so much positive feedback about that and we found them really valuable. We're hoping to have 2 more trainings this year starting in June. We're also going to introduce live webinars with Dan on special topics to help, both increase knowledge on a specific kind of activity and also allow for another avenue to interact with Dan one-on-one and ask him questions and talk about the program more generally. We're also looking to start hosting more social events and have in-person mentoring opportunities with Dan. They're a little bit more informal that can help, keep people involved in the program that may have attended an in-person training last year, while also helping to build that kind of network of contractors in our region that are interested in heat pumps. We also are hoping to provide a live heat pump water heater install demonstration to build more of those tangible hands-on skills. That's something that's still in the early planning stages, but it's a huge goal of ours. We think it'd be really, really useful to reach that goal of just having more contractors able to install heat pumps, more specifically with heat pump water heaters, but it's a start. Finally, our goal is to continue to get the word out about heat pump technology and electrification in our community, and just to be a trusted source for local contractors to turn to when more customers inevitably start requesting heat pumps in this area. Great, I think that's everything from me. So are there any WE&T questions?
Yes, we have a few in the Q&A. First is this program available for Tahoe contractors generally or only Truckee contractors? And also, how do people get information on the training?
Yeah, so currently we are focused on contractors in the Tahoe Basin. So not just North Tahoe and Truckee, but the basin and Truckee. So it's a little bit of a wider area, but any contractor that's interested in heat pumps that's in this region or even serves this region. So they could be from down in Reno and they come up to work in Truckee or the basin, then they're also eligible for this program. And then I think going to our website is definitely where there's a lot of resources about and information about the trainings and the resources that we're providing. We do marketing pushes every once in a while to get the word out. So we'll definitely be doing that again as we start to ramp things up for the summer. And we are trying to get more folks interested in the in-person trainings. So definitely keep an eye out there. But that's about the extent of it at the moment.
Okay. Another question is beyond the misconceptions about heat pumps not working well in cold climates. Are there other common barriers that you've seen for residents and or contractors to adopt heat pump technology?
Yeah, I mean, Brittany can also talk about this, but I think cost is one of the big issues for homeowners and also for contractors as well, since it's easier for them to get more business if it's a more affordable option. And especially when, with heat pumps being more complicated, there could potentially be more work involved in installing them, which will take more hours, and that's less less projects getting done. So there are those kinds of barriers that we've run into quite a few times.
Um,
Oh, sorry, Deirdre, I'll
oh,
just really
yeah.
quick.
Do we have time for one more question, or should we go on to Brittany and save the rest for later?
I think we want to do one more question and then we'll.
Okay, so this is sort of an easy one. Do you have a list of contractors that will install heat pumps?
Yes, so that's something that we've been updating on our website as well, and that's in our homeowner resources section, I believe. So we've definitely met quite a few contractors through this training program that have we've added to the website since learning that they're able to install them. So this has been a good also outreach for that side of our program as well. But it's on the website.
Okay, good. For those of you who have questions in the Q&A, we'll try to get them in our more extensive Q&A at the end of the program.
Well, I'll try and get through these slides pretty quickly so we have time at the end for any questions about the workforce education and training service or the electrification coaching service. But a little bit about the electrification coaching service. So we started this to increase the adoption of heat pumps throughout the region. And so this is not necessarily a new idea, as there are a lot of great companies that provide this type of service throughout the state, like Quick Carbon, but we thought it would be really helpful to provide this type of assistance that is specific to the Truckee Tahoe region, given the unique challenges and barriers that many of us face when considering heat pumps. And we really wanted to design the coaching service to address a lot of the pain points that we've heard in the past when discussing with homeowners and building owners who were having trouble trying to get a heat pump project installed. So a big one of them is we want to make sure that they are informed and can get connected to local contractors that conduct energy audits and heat pump installations. We also help navigate any available funding opportunities like rebates, tax credits, and other funding opportunities. Statewide tax or statewide rebates that David had mentioned, like the Tech Clean California. And lastly, we really wanted to provide any additional resources to assist homeowners as they get their home ready for future upgrades. And the reason, again, like why we wanted to do this electrification coaching service is that although heat pumps are not necessarily a new technology, and for many of us on this call, we have, a big passion for heat pumps, that's not typically normal for the average customer. A lot of the participants that I've discussed with have heard heat pumps maybe once or twice, don't know the nuances of all that can go on, especially when it comes to HVAC units. So we definitely want to provide as much resources and information and education and awareness as possible. And then also dispel any misconceptions that heat pumps don't work in our area. I've talked to participants who have had contractors tell them that they don't work in our area. We've heard people down even in Reno who tried to get a heat pump and they were told that heat pumps don't work in Reno climate, which Reno is definitely, I wouldn't consider too much of a cold climate. So there's still a lot of misconceptions. So a lot of that comes with providing resources and education. Also, heat pumps come in all shapes and sizes, so it can be really difficult to navigate that on your own, right? We have air-to-air heat pumps, we have air-to-water, we have mini splits, we have ducted, we have ductless. So there's so much that involves heat pumps itself. And so we've learned a lot by professionals like Dan who's been able to provide a lot of insight. And so then we can also provide that same insight to homeowners that are interested in installs. And although there are many resources regarding heat pumps, few of them are localized to our region. So we really wanted to provide that. Haley, if you can move on to the next page. Thank you. So when we're talking with a participant that's going through our coaching service, we really want to work with them to really understand how prepared their home or building is for a heat pump installation. So every home and building is so unique, and every design element is so unique, and every building owner is coming from a different place of understanding and different goals in mind. So one thing that we really want to understand is if they've made any recent energy efficiency improvements. It's especially important when you're considering a heat pump HVAC system, as reducing your building's overall energy use through building envelope improvements like air sealing and adding insulation can really help to offset those installation costs and accurately size your system to be more comfortable. A large percentage of heat is actually lost through the building's envelope, which, things like uninsulated ceilings, walls. So we want to make sure that we let homeowners know that if their home is pretty old and hasn't been updated in a while, it would be very beneficial for them to do home energy efficiency improvements, building envelope improvements. And then we also highly recommend that they do energy audits and a blower door test. Although we don't conduct these audits ourselves, we definitely have resources to point them to for this. It's just a great way to help identify and prioritize areas of improvement. There's also, again, as mentioned, so many different types of heat pump HVAC systems, and we need to understand if they have, the home has any secondary forms of heating, if they're comfortable going fully electric, what's the difference between dual fuel and a fully electric heat pump, how old is their ducting, does it need to be replaced or improved, are there areas in the home that are drafty or cold, and also really brainstorming where we can put that outdoor condenser unit where it's not going to be buried in the snow. And the nice thing is because we have these relationships with homeowners, we also have solutions to what people have done in the past to protect the outdoor units, and we can share those resources and those pictures and those solutions as well. We also would, we need to have a discussion about what their timeline is for installation. We definitely recommend that homeowners replace their heating system before it's absolutely necessary. Heat pumps can take, especially, HVAC systems can take a lot longer than a traditional furnace to install. So we want to make sure that they're set up for success. And obviously, most homeowners don't want to touch their furnaces in the wintertime. So definitely plan a lot longer time for installing a heat pump just to get those resources and get numerous quotes from contractors, things like that. So we also, again, connect them to contractors so they can get multiple quotes. We also are able to compare different quotes because we work with different homeowners who have gone through this process. So we're really lucky to be able to do that. And lastly, many homeowners are not that well informed on available funding opportunities. Contractors are also not that well informed on local rebates that could help potentially their customers. So we want to provide that funding opportunity. We, look at local and state rebates. We look at tax credits. We provide resources on how to take advantage of those applications and tax credits. We can also assist with rebate applications. We can let people know when those budgets or pockets of funding are closing or reopening. So it's a great way to get some resources. If you want to move on to the next section, Kaylee. As for our electrification coaching service, we launched this service in August of last year, and we didn't want to launch it in tandem with the workforce education and training program, mainly because we wanted people to have, we wanted to have basically a pool of contractors that we could refer to and connect them to potential projects. So some of the outreach attempts that we did for this program are very similar to the ones that we did for workforce education and training, and it just goes to show that a lot of what we do there's not like a silver bullet as for what works. So we have to do a lot of diversified outreach strategies, and we'll continue to do that. And then your future as well, if you want to move on to the next slide. Thank you. So to date, we've worked with 24 local residents throughout the Truckee Tahoe region. As mentioned, every participant is coming from different needs and levels of readiness. So some of them are just beginning their journey and just heard about heat pumps for the first time, and some of them are waited throughout the winters. They didn't want to touch any of their equipment until afterwards. So now they're starting to reach out to contractors. And I've been talking to a couple of participants who are actually doing heat pump water heater installs right now. So that's really exciting to see. We've developed a host of resources based off of what participants have asked for. So things like the energy audit and building envelope guidance, a lot of building envelope and weatherization upgrades a lot of people aren't necessarily familiar with. So we wanted to build this out as a handout. So that's what we did. And we worked with Dan Perungo of Balance Point Home Performance. And so he gave a lot of really great recommendations and guidance when you're taking an inventory of your home and looking at, your insulation, your walls, your ceiling, your windows, things like that, that could be improved. We also have a quarterly newsletter where we provide updates about funding opportunities, workforce, providing updates for the workforce education and training, any upcoming trainings or webinars, resources, especially those local to the Truckee Tahoe region. So we'll be sending those out quarterly, and if there's more interest in it, we'll be sending them out monthly. So we're always, happy to adjust things. And like David mentioned, we do have a fully functional website where we provide information on local heat pump installers and electrification guidance resources to assist building and homeowners that are interested in moving away from natural gas and other fossil fuels. So we do have that funding tracker where you can find available rebates, tax credits, anything like that is applicable to Truckee and Tahoe residents. And we try to keep that funding tracker as updated as possible whenever funding runs out or is closed or is reopened. So we try to keep that very, very up to date. If you want to move on to the next slide, some key takeaways. Again, every home and building is so unique and has its own set of challenges. So it's really important to provide that personalized assistance with every single participant and have a good understanding of how big their home is, how many, what their goals are. We want to be as authentic and accurate as possible. So providing, constant follow-up and seeing if there's any other issues up and happening with contractors, we definitely want to be able to provide that. As mentioned, heat pump projects can take longer to prepare and install than traditional furnaces. A lot of it has to be because a lot of the contractors we work with, some of them are not necessarily the most comfortable with heat pump project quite yet, but they'll get up to it. So they build in a lot of lead time just in case anything goes wrong or they need to mediate anything. So definitely make sure to put in a lot of time before you change out your HVAC system. And lastly, rebates and funding opportunities, they really do make an impact. We had a coaching participant who was going to install a heat pump, an air-to-water heat pump HVAC system, but they decided not to because the Tech Clean California funding was fully subscribed. So, they still have the plan to do it, just not now. It'll just be tabled. So it just goes to show that these rebates really do make an impact, and funding really does mean it matters a lot to homeowners. So as much as resources we can provide, we will. And lastly, if anyone's interested in heat pump projects, we're more than happy to assist in any way that we can. So feel free to reach out to myself or to David. And Kaylee, if you want to go to the next slide, we'll be happy to help. And okay, I tried to sum that up pretty quickly, but I'll leave it open to any questions that might be out there.
Hey, Brittany and David, we have some questions still in the Q&A. I'm going to combine a couple of them in this question. How are you working with low-income communities, and are there any special funding programs that are aimed at low-income residents?
I'll talk from the coaching side of it. We definitely, all of our services are free services. And they're the only income qualified service that I can really think about. One, tax credits are available. And then two, are the HERA rebates available through Tech Clean California. Those were recently reinstated. So those are still available for lower income communities. I know David had mentioned we want to do a demonstration for a heat pump water heater project in the near future as a hands-on portion for the contractor training. And we're definitely looking at how to connect with a lower income household to do that service where they wouldn't have to pay very much, if anything at all. So we're still looking at different options where we can assist and provide, any resources there.
Okay, and we have a question about whether you have done any comparative cost analysis of gas versus heat pump space heating.
David, I don't know if you wanted to take that one or myself, but
Yeah, I know from my perspective, like we definitely get that question a lot from contractors because they want to know how to talk about costs and cost difference with their potential clients. But it's something that we haven't been able to nail down or find a good resource to do that, unless Brittany, if there's anything you found, please let me know.
Yeah.
But it's
The question is about operating costs rather than capital costs. So
yeah,
just to
yeah.
clarify.
Got it. Yeah. So same for operating costs. It really depends on the house, and all of those other efficiency improvements that can be done. Because we can't really say that if you install a heat pump, your electric bills are going to go down because they definitely might not. They might go up. It just depends on what heat pump you install, how big it is, how much space is in your home, how well it's been weatherized, and the building enclosure work that we talked about. So it's really just specific to each individual house. So we haven't been able to provide that yet.
yeah, and I also will say, I think a lot of the homes that we work with in the region don't have air conditioners. So now, if you're adding a heat pump that has the capacity to be, work as an air conditioner as well, so you're adding an additional load there. So that's a thing to always consider, and we try to be very transparent. That sometimes your electric bills will definitely most likely be affected because you're moving away from gas, adding more electricity, and then on top of that, you're adding another form of heat or of load onto your home through that air conditioner. So we try to be very transparent in that aspect.
And have contractors had any challenges with permitting compliance? And are there any suggestions to streamline permitting?
I haven't heard anything from contractors that they've had issues. I think, yeah, I haven't run into too much yet to answer that. So sorry.
Um, let's see. Um, we have a question here. I guess either of you could answer it, which is what's the difference between heat pump and mini split?
Um, I'll go for it. And because I do end up talking to a lot of homeowners about these things. A mini split is a form of a heat pump. It just means that it has an outdoor unit and then an indoor unit, and it doesn't necessarily, it can be ducted or ductless, but it's really great for homes that don't have ducting all throughout their household. Um, so, um, but yeah, a mini split is a type of heat pump.
And we have a question. Do you have a list of contractors who will do uh, blower um, who will do blower analysis in connection with audits?
Yeah, and I think we've always wanted to, I guess I should say, we do have a list of engineering firms or contractors that do that type of work. We're still also building out that side of our contractor list. And then even with our heat pump installer list, whether that's heat pump HVAC or heat pump water heater installers, we're constantly making sure that all of our lists are up to date and accurate. And that, we try and hear from the customers themselves if they're happy with the work that people have done in the past. So things can change, but yes, yeah, that's definitely part of it's on our website, and then we'll be adding onto it as we hear from when we do our own research or hear word of mouth from contractors or homeowners themselves.
And there's a question on with respect to the open houses that you've done or any other installations that you have become aware of in our area. Are you collecting any data such as capital cost, operating cost from these particular experiments and any data on the lessons learned from those installations?
I'll just I'll take it from the coaching side, and then David, if you want to take it from your point of view too. Yes, we definitely take into account operation costs, capital costs, all of those things that we from those two households. And then we do, any quotes I'm also looking at and taking inventory of. One of the houses that we did an in-person tour of, they installed their heat pump back in I think 2017. So the amounts are a little bit different, but they're still pretty applicable.
And we have a question about a recently introduced piece of legislation in California, so we'll forgive you if you aren't up to date on this, but let's try. The question is, are you aware of the of AB 306, which was just recently introduced by Assembly members Schultz and Rivas, which would eliminate code updates until 2031, including any local reach codes?
I haven't been made aware of that yet, but that's really interesting. We'll definitely have to keep an eye on that for our program.
Yeah, I will just mention that the Building Decarbonization Coalition has a group that follows California legislation, and they just did a review of that. So they are a source of information on this and recommendations as well. So that's a resource for Anna, who answered that question, who asked that question. I think we have exhausted the questions in the Q&A. So Matt, would you like to spend a minute asking a question from your list?
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. Let's see. I would say a lot of these have actually been answered. I actually have a question for you. Is part of your training, are you guys going to be doing anything about, talking about radiant heat pumps?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's not something that's included currently in our kind of suite of videos, but it's something that's come up in the in-person classes. We've had people ask Dan about that. There's definitely a lot of interest in it. So that's maybe something that we should bring up to Dan about doing a live webinar about, or another format to include that in our program.
Yeah. The reason I ask is that, as far as I know, like especially higher end homes and certainly newer homes in general, that seems to be the preferred form of heating. So it would be good to have that.
Yeah. And one of the home tours we did, they had the radiant floor heating, and they said they kind of depend on that most of the time, more so than their large HVAC units. So yeah, it's really interesting.
Another question has popped up in the Q&A that I didn't see earlier, which is, are larger ducts required because the heated air temperature is lower?
That's a good question. I feel like I need to ask Dan what he would think, since that might be the technical knowledge that I am not 100% sure about, so I don't want to say one way or the other for sure. But definitely a good question.
I'll just pipe in here to say that I had a heat pump installed, and at least in a couple of instances, yes, they had to increase the size of the ducts for that reason.
Okay, thank you. I think we're getting to the end of our time, so I'm going to turn this back over to Kaylee.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for this presentation. Ton of questions, so thanks for fielding all of those. And just for everyone still on the call, this has been recorded and will be posted on CTA's website, and we will send out the follow-up with the slides and Brittany and David's contact information early next week, so keep an eye out for that. And thank you all for joining us for this webinar. We will be in touch soon. Thanks all.